There's been a lot of talk lately about the Utah Jazz and the Toronto Raptors being potential trade partners, and I think it's time to figure out whether or not we are buying or selling those rumors. What's up everybody, it's JJ Buckets, welcome back to the channel. I think the video here is pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, there's been a lot of rumors about, Raptors being interested in some Jazz players, as obviously they are fire sailing over there, and it is time to figure out how much stock we should put into those rumors. Now, before I fully get into things, usual drill, just make sure you leave me a like on the video. I know it's annoying, I know I say it every time, but it really does make a huge difference in the algorithm, so thank you if you're doing it. And if you're new here and you end up liking what you watch today, make sure to just subscribe to the channel. We don't stop at 1K, we keep going, okay? But yeah, that's pretty much it. Besides for that, let's hop into the video. First things first, let me unfortunately kill some dreams here. When it comes to the Utah Jazz, and when it comes to Bojan Bogdanovic and Mike Conley, if you want to throw him in there too, I hate to say it, Raptors fans, at least for this offseason, it's not happening. And I'll tell you why it's not happening. Both of those guys have pretty hefty contracts. Just off the top of my head, I know Mike Conley's around like 20 mil and Bojan Bogdanovic is around like 18 mil. And with the Raptors roster currently, because, guys like Boucher, guys like Thad Young aren't tradable until January, you're going to be dangling either OG Anunoby, or we're talking Gary Trent Jr., whoever else that has to be thrown into that trade to make the salaries work. I don't think I need a long explanation for why you're not doing that, but yeah, realistically speaking, Thad Young, some combination of him, maybe Boucher, and whoever else can Birch for salary filler, etc., is ideally what you want to be doing here to bolster the team. Like, I don't think the idea here is to trade any of the core for these role players that are gonna admittedly boost your roster, but not when you're giving up potentially an OG Anunoby or a Gary Trent Jr. to make the money work. So Bojan Bogdanovic is a good player and a very good player and a player that would fit, quite frankly, really well with the Raptors. But right now, as it stands with the contracts and with the salaries, it's just that one's not getting done. And obviously, if Bojan at 18 mil is not getting done, you sure as hell know that Mike Conley at 20 mil isn't getting done. So that kills, I would say, two of the bigger potential trade targets here that would be available for the Raptors. So who does that leave? Well, I think the other name that has been involved in rumors, and the only realistic name that, could be in a deal like today, tomorrow, is Jordan Clarkson. And let's talk about Jordan Clarkson. We've narrowed down to Jordan Clarkson. Now, here's why I like and don't like the idea of this trade at the same time. On one hand, we know what Jordan Clarkson brings to the table. He is a massive scoring punch off the bench, and a massive scoring punch off the bench for a Raptors team that had one of the worst, bench production in terms of like scoring. Sorry, I worded that really awkwardly, but you know what I mean. A team that was lacking bench production in the scoring department could use a Jordan Clarkson. He definitely provides that offensive spark plug in terms of just being able to put the ball in the basket, and I think there's some appeal to that. On the counter argument of that though, Jordan Clarkson, first things first, not a great defender, obviously. Like, you can make the argument that you have enough good defense on this team that you don't mind, running Jordan Clarkson at a guard spot and getting that offense for you, and, his defense would get covered up by some of the other guys on this team. That's an argument you can make, sure, but at the end of the day, like, whatever way you want to slice it, he's a negative defensively. But the big thing, I think, for me personally, is I've never been a huge fan of these guys that really just bring scoring to the table. Guys like, Jordan Clarkson, Lou Will, etc., that archetype of player. Because here's the thing, it's like when they're not giving you that scoring punch, what else are they really offering on the court? I mean, you can make an argument, I guess, that Jordan Clarkson can, and most of these guys, I would say, that fit into this archetype, can play make a little bit, but not really significantly enough that they're still giving you value on the court when they're not scoring the ball. And that's, I guess, kind of always been my thing a little bit, is, you want those guys that are going to give you multiple levels of production, whether it be scoring plus something else, or playmaking plus something else, or defense plus something else, etc., etc. You get my point. With Jordan Clarkson, all you're realistically banking on is him having a good scoring night off the bench. And you know what? Not the worst gamble in the world. Again, he's a good scorer off the bench. He's been one of the better six-men, I would say, in the league for in that archetype for a fairly good amount of time. But again, he's not the most efficient player in the world. Again, he's kind of a volume guy off the bench. And when he's not hitting, just one more time to reiterate, you're not really gonna get much value there in terms of what he's giving you. So if that's the only realistic target, and mind you, the names you'd be throwing here are not really that huge to make this deal work. It'd be Cam Birch. Quite frankly, you're probably throwing Malachi Flynn for a salary filler, and quite frankly for, I guess, the appeal of this trade, a young guy, with potential, if you can sell the Jazz on that. And at that point, it's is that trade really worth it? Does Jordan Clarkson really lift you that much? And you can tell me in the comment section below whether or not you find that the case, whether or not you think he's bringing enough value to you that you pull the trigger on this trade. For me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this move. I think a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic, I'm a bigger fan of personally. And like I was saying earlier, that trade's not getting done until, potentially the trade deadline or sometime later in the season. And do you really think he's still going to be on the roster for the Jazz that much later? I would think the Jazz fire sale, they want to move guys as soon as possible. But at the same time, I could see them holding out for a better deal. So, you can argue that one or the other. But at the same time here, I guess my point here being is, as it currently stands, Jordan Clarkson really is the only available target for the Raptors that, could potentially be worthwhile. And at the end of the day, I don't know how worthwhile it really is. So when it comes to these deals that everybody's talking about potentially making with the Jazz that involve the Toronto Raptors, I don't see the avenue for a good trade here. I'm going to be completely honest. So that is pretty much me for the day. What do you folks think? Is a trade with the Jazz worth it? Or are you more or less locked into the idea of, this is the roster we got and this is what we're kind of moving forward with? Because I think that's more or less where I'm at with it. I don't really see a deal getting done until, maybe later in the season, maybe around the deadline, when guys like Thad Young and Boucher, respectfully, again, I keep throwing their names in here, so respectfully, but when guys like that for salary purposes are available, I think that's more realistically when the Raptors are going to be making a deal. I could really see them, if things are going right, as players at the trade deadline, and reasonably, I would say, big buyers. Well, maybe not big buyers, but buyers for, those guys to really shore up what you have going on outside the core. But besides for that, just right now, especially with the Jazz, I just don't see them being players in the trade market here. But that's just my opinion on the matter. To reiterate the drill from the beginning of the video, if you like this video, which if you're still watching, and thank you, but if you're still watching, you like this video, so just hit that like button. It does a huge favor to me, so I appreciate it when you do it. And other than that, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, which again, if you're still watching, I think that subscription is worth it. Just hit that button for me and it will be a happy moment for the both of us, I would think. It's been JJ Buckets. It's been real, and I will see everybody next time.